What's up, friends? Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com. Thanks for listening as well on ESPN Kansas City. We are beaming as it's a Victory
Hey,
Monday. That's Dan Courtwright. I am Sean Kellerman. Thanks for joining us here on this beautiful Sunshine Monday where we celebrate the Jayhawks, proving to 1-0 in Big 12 play. They blast West Virginia in the opener. We're talking about that here in the opening segment and looking forward to getting Dan's musings, Dan's rants. We don't have to worry about Dan's rants
yeah, I don't have any
today. No
rants
rants, no
today.
rants. It was all
No.
good on the Hill on Saturday night. Hey, next segment, we're going to be joined by Kevin Flaherty from the Kansas City Sports Network. He hosts the Pay Heat podcast and the Verbal Commitment podcast. He will give his take on KU's 41-10 trouncing of the Ears at the new booth. And then right around about 12:45, not 12:45, 4:45 or so. Jalon Daniels is going to talk to us. Post-game comments from JD6. He threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for nearly 70 yards as well. Really used his legs to get KU's offense moving down the field in the first half on Saturday. And then we're going to have our Case of the Monday segment, Dan. You know that Mike Gundy is going to be on here again, which is really
Of course.
unfortunate because he's celebrating a birthday today. He turns
No. 40?
40. Can
You're
you believe
kidding.
it?
Man, he's a
Mike Gundy
man.
is 40. He's officially a man. Happy birthday.
Good
But
for
he
him.
did not have a happy birthday celebration on Friday.
No, he absolutely did not. We'll get into that a little bit, but I am actually I have that at the very top of the Case of the Mondays because not a very good weekend for old Michael Gundy. Man, it's he's gonna be shooting his way out of town. That's good.
What's
That's
Yeah, what's interesting about Oklahoma State is remember last year they were picked so high, and then their non-con season they went 3-0,
yeah.
and then the conference season they went 0-9.
Yes.
And now
Oh,
it's
I'm
just been a
familiar.
disaster. They beat UT Martin in the opener, lost 69-3 to Oregon last week, and then of course on Friday night lost to Tulsa, which
First time since
is
1951 they lost to Tulsa and Stillwater.
that's unbelievable.
Unreal.
Yeah, not exactly a football powerhouse. No disrespect to former Jayhawk great Sevion Morrison, who's over there
Yes.
with the Golden Hurricane, and a great win for them, honestly, on the road
And also
against the
former
Big 12
Jayhawk
team.
great Clint Bowen
Yes,
on the staff.
absolutely. Banks Bowen was on the other side, however, former LHS
Yes.
great. He was on the Oklahoma State roster, and they lost 19-12 on Friday. So we'll catch you up to date on everything going on in college football, NFL, everywhere in the world of sports in our Case of the Monday segment coming around the 5 o'clock hour. And then after that, we're going to hear from the victorious head coach Lance Leipold at the podium post game, and we'll close out talking KU volleyball. A good stretch of wins, 5 straight wins before they end up losing to Creighton in Omaha yesterday. They had 2 games yesterday. The first one against FGCU at 10 a.m. and then at 5 p.m. they had a rematch with Creighton, and the Blue Jays clipped them again, second time this season. Creighton over KU. 9-5 is KU volleyball, but hopefully some good vibes heading into conference play. Friday night, a Zoe Burgess revenge game, as we've
That's
talked
right.
about. Big 12 opener for KU volleyball at Horge here in Lawrence. Excited for that. And also KU soccer. They play at home this week as well. It seems like we haven't seen some of these teams in action here on the call in quite some time. But end of this week, we get to see soccer and volleyball. And then, of course, Saturday, KU football is back at home to host Cincinnati. Also, of course, we'll talk a little Chiefs football.
Yes.
It's a victory Monday for them, too.
Victory Monday.
It
Double victory
wasn't
Monday.
the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, but it
No.
was a victory on
A
that front.
lot of questions regarding Isaiah Pacheco. We'll get into it in that, but
Yeah. Not just
I'm out
Isaiah
on
Pacheco
I
either.
have a couple of players that I'm completely out on
Yeah.
for
Okay.
the
All right.
Chiefs.
Fair enough. Yeah, it was ugly. I mean, it got to a point where first half I was like, what am I even watching right now?
Yeah,
I
it
mean, these
was
guys look unrecognizable. Thankfully, the
disgusting.
defense, you can't really have anything bad to say about them. I
No.
mean, they're going to win the Chiefs a lot of games. So we'll get into that at the close of the show today. But yeah, first let's break down this win on Saturday over West Virginia. KU was viewed as a big favorite in this one, and well, sure enough, they went out and dominated. West Virginia, of course, did not have Jaheim White, their running back, who was atop the depth chart when the season started, out for the season, and then they got a good performance out of Ty Edwards in the backyard brawl, ran for over 140 yards. We didn't see him at all, so they were a little bit depleted. And as you and I talked about before the game, Dan, you have a 1 and a 2 in your running back room, and in the Big 12, there's a little bit of a drop off maybe, but not much. But when you drop
Right.
down to 3, 4, 5, like we saw some of those guys deeper on the running back depth chart for West Virginia, there's certainly more of a drop off there.
Yeah, I think so. So I actually during the game I was doing stats for the West Virginia play-by-play guy just because I got hooked up with him and I was helping out the West Virginia people. And before the game, he had mentioned that yeah, man, Jaheim White out, Ty Edwards out. He's like the third string running back. Essentially, he's the kind of guy who you would probably see playing at like an Emporia State, and that was before he even knew that I played football at Emporia State. I was like,
Stingers
"You
up. Did
talking
you ever end up
trash?"
telling him? Did you ever end
Yeah,
up
I
telling
did.
him?
Yeah,
That's
yeah. He's like,
what did he
"Oh, my
say?
bad, dude." Yeah, I
That's
was
so
like,
funny.
It's
You're
fine.
like, no,
It's
no, no.
whatever. It's
That
cool.
that is so funny.
I'll memory bank that one."
No,
But yeah, no, their running game obviously when you like you said when you get down to their third string guy,
yeah,
it's obviously going to be a big drop off. And they had a couple of different guys. They had Clay Ash out there. They had a number of different players who got some play. We also saw three different quarterbacks. Now, granted, we saw their other two quarterbacks later in the game, kind of when it was out of hand. But I mean, I want to talk about this first. I mean, I maybe I don't know what got into me. Maybe it was just because of the fact that Kansas didn't have a run game against Mizzou. Maybe it was because of the fact that Kansas hasn't really been tested other than Mizzou, and they wound up losing that game. But the spread was 12 and a half, right, at the time of kickoff. And I was really nervous. I said, no, this is going to be a close game. This is going to be, kind of a shootout. And boy, was I wrong.
yeah.
And a testament to this Kansas squad because this is a completely different team than what we saw last year, not just personnel wise, but in terms of game management, right? Because there was plenty of different times where sort of in that middle eight, and then also towards the end of the second half, the end of the first half. Last year, we would have seen Kansas kind of crumble in those situations, and they certainly didn't. Right? They maintained it strong, and I think that the way that Kansas won this game was really through special teams because of the constant great field position. If you look at the numbers, they're relatively similar. JD did not have a really good game through the air, right? He was 12 for 24, 138 yards through the air. Yes, he had 3 touchdowns. I understand that. But only 5.8 yards per reception. Nico Markiel, 15 of 27 for 126. I mean, those are very comparable through the air stats. So looking directly at the statistics, right? They had 182 rushing yards. Kansas had 242. There's only a difference, I believe, of about 60 total offensive yards through that game, and Kansas still managed to win by 31. So
Yeah.
special teams, if that shows you any indication, is really kind of where Kansas thrived in this. They kept on getting really solid field position, whether it be Tate Nagy on a 30-yard punt return. Obviously, Emmanuel Henderson had the opening kickoff for the second half opening kickoff returned for a touchdown, so that was huge too. But Kansas, I think they just dominated every facet of that game, even though it wasn't really a perfect game. I think if you were to give it grades, which is what we did in that Missouri game, right, where Kansas didn't play an A game. I don't think Jalon played an A game through the air, but it didn't really matter because of the fact that Kansas kept on getting that great field position and kept on, capitalizing on those opportunities.
Well, and yeah, kind of going back to what I was going to say regarding West Virginia, they came in with the running back situation being what it was. And yeah, there's some question marks at quarterback. We talked last week about how Nico Markiel, probably not a top 12 quarterback and all that. So yeah, we understand they're coming in. But the most important thing is that Kansas dominated a Big 12 team at home in the opener. There was no nail biting at the end.
Right.
KU shouldn't apologize no matter what's going on for West Virginia. Yeah, it's a rebuilding year, whatever it is. Obviously, they've been dealing with some adversity from injury side of things. Everybody has something like that going on. Well, Kansas went out and did what they were supposed to do, and we shouldn't bat an eye at that because hey, it was 41-10.
I
I
know.
mean, we need to talk about that. Kansas had so many years where they couldn't win a game on the road, they couldn't win a game at home, and everything was difficult for them. And a Big 12 team with Big 12 caliber players came to Lawrence. KU looked at as the favorite, went out, and there was no question about it. And you brought up the special teams. That's certainly the story of the game because you look at the total yards: 388 for Kansas, 324 for West Virginia. Not much. Looks like a close game when you look at that. It wasn't close at all because
No.
Kansas, due to Finn Lappin, who really controlled the field position side of things, along with the good returns of Tate Nagy, of Emmanuel Henderson, West Virginia was starting at their own 19 the majority of the first half. That was the average. Kansas was starting at their own 39. There's the field position battle
Right.
one for Kansas. We talk a lot about offense, defense, and I always kind of try to make sure to say, hey, don't forget about special teams, right? Well, this is a perfect example of why that third phase is so important. Monty Marjan hit both of his field goal attempts and, of course, all of his point afters. That was big as well. You didn't have to worry about West Virginia returning anything from a kick return side of things. And Kansas just really went out and dominated from the jump. West Virginia is not a very good team. They're also a team that just beat Pitt last week. They
That's
did have
right.
Ty Edwards, but that was a nice win for West Virginia. They came in and they had no chance. And you got to start with the special teams. You focus on, of course, the offense. The offense puts up outside of Henderson's, punt return touchdown from special teams, 34 points. KU did what they needed to on offense. They finally got the running game going in the second half. Leishon got his breakaway, and the offensive line did much better in the second half. But again, it's KU's defense. They gave up 7 to Fresno, 7 to Wagner. Understand Mizzou got 42 on them, and they were on the field forever. And there's certainly still some issues when you talk about third down. Honestly, on both sides of the ball when you talk about third down. But West Virginia held to just 10 points. They had one bad drive that I think DK McDonald is going to be happy about in terms of
Yes.
film session this week and saying, hey, we got a quarterback coming in leading a 95-yard touchdown drive, 77 yards on the ground. And yeah, Brendan Thorsby next week, he can run too. So that's going to be an area Kansas can point to for improvement. But overall, this KU defense dominated. I mean, it was men against boys when the West Virginia offense was out there against KU's D. Markiel didn't have anywhere to go pretty much. They had nothing in the run game. KU was more physical. They were faster, more athletic on the outside as well. So you got to credit KU's defense for really making sure the Mountaineers didn't have a chance.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the defense, I think this is probably the best game that we've seen Dean Miller as well as Justice Finkley have, right? That was kind of something we were talking about, hey, Justice Finkley, he's a captain, he's a leader on this program, but we haven't really been saying his name a whole heck of a lot. He had 5 tackles, 1 solo tackle, and a half tackle for a loss. I mean, he had a very good game. And then Dean Miller, 7 total tackles, 3 solo, and a sack. He had 1.5 tackles for a loss. This is probably the best game I think we've seen Dean Miller play in his Kansas career, at least this season, right? So the pass rush was excellent, right? You saw a lot of guys getting a ton of pressure. Trey Lathan, by the way, Trey Lathan revenge game, had a sack and a
Yeah.
pick in this game as well. So shout out to Trey Lathan. The Kansas defense, I think, really did a great job of standing tall, and they did exactly what they needed to do, right? Because if you look at the rushing yards from Nico Markiel, that was kind of the thing that I talked about of, hey, you have to flush him out of the pocket, but you can't let him get that edge because he is able to do it on his legs. He had 6 carries for -4 yards. So Kansas did a great job of flushing him out, either getting sacks or tackling him in the backfield. So I think that's very important to look at and say, okay, well, Kansas did exactly what they needed to do in terms of that, right? Because that's where we know that Nico Markiel does not thrive, is throwing on the run. So Kansas defense did an excellent job. And if you don't mind, I want to flip the field a little bit to the offensive side of the ball, because shout out to Leishon Williams. I mean, my goodness, talk about next man up mentality, right? Daniel Highshaw got a couple of snaps early, right? 2 carries, 9 yards total. Then he came out. He actually went to the locker room and changed into street clothes, and then it was kind of Leishon Williams' time from there. 129 yards, 19 carries. He had a touchdown on the ground, also had a touchdown through the air on a beautiful scheme. I mean, oh my goodness, it was basically a fake, what looked like to be a triple option with a tight end leak and a wheel route underneath the tight end. We actually saw that in the Fresno State game as well, and Leishon Williams broke free. But look, Kansas had 2 deep shots, right? Levi Wentz had a 41-yard touchdown.
Yeah, where was the defense on that one?
Oh, I know. Yeah, he was high school wide open. Leishon Williams had a 39-yard touchdown. Other than that, a lot of quick stuff, right? You had Emmanuel Henderson, 6 receptions, 38 yards. Then you have a bunch of little ones, right? Cam Pickett for 8, Bryson Canty for 8, Bowden Gruen for 7 and a touchdown. So you saw those little matriculating passes down the field, which is, again, kind of what Kansas needed to do, right? That was what we talked about as well, where they like to bring a lot of pressure. So you had to hit those small little passes, kind of finding those soft spots in those zones, kind of replacing the linebacker whenever they're bringing that pressure. So I think Kansas played this game in terms of what they needed to do perfectly. But again, shout to Le'Shawn Williams, man. That's just that next man up mentality of, hey, Daniel's hurt. This is my time to shine, and he certainly did that.
We heard from head coach Lance Leipold at his weekly press conference earlier today. He didn't mention Highshaw specifically.
Mhm.
Obviously, Wednesday, an availability report will come out. We'll see what comes of that. Hopefully, Highshaw can go on Saturday. As you said, he did remain on the sideline after changing into street clothes. But it's important to point out 19 for 129 from Williams. That looks great, right? 6.8 yards per carry. You have the 62-yarder, which you don't take that out. That's not how it
Right.
works. You don't take it
Yeah.
out. How it is it's 7 yards per carry nearly for Le'Shawn Williams. But in the first half, KU wasn't getting anything,
No,
whether it was
absolutely not.
Highshot or Williams. And you got to credit the offensive line of Kansas. KU up front, Bryce Foster and company, they were losing to that nose tackle of West Virginia early. They were.
They
They weren't
were.
getting any sort of push up front. But then in the second half, things started opening up. And yeah, it was a good game for Jalon Daniels to maybe play a B minus because Kansas ran away with this. Obviously, you want him playing his A game the whole time. You mentioned just 12 of 24. There were a couple drops in there, which KU's got to
Yes.
clean that up, make sure that we don't continue to see that. 138 and 3 touchdowns, but he did so much in extending Kansas's drives in the first half. He had 61 yards rushing in the first half alone, did JD, and it's just so fun to watch because he really that's where he shows his magic is being able to run. I was a little bit surprised. He had a couple balls where he threw on the run that he just missed somebody. So certainly, like I said, more of a B minus game from JD. Usually, you can count on him to be accurate, whether he's in the pocket or scrambling. But again, in this game, it didn't matter as much, and KU is able to get out of there. The
To
other
be
thing
fair with
about this
Jalon,
game,
though, I will say this: with Jalon, he was like you said, that nose tackle for West Virginia
yeah,
was beating the guys in the middle, right, flushing Jalon out. But it's a credit to Jalon because Jalon wasn't taking those sacks, right? We had
yeah,
one kind of miss snap where there was somebody got back on it and there was a fumble, right? But at the same time, Jalon did a great job of getting flushed out of the pocket. And yeah, there was a couple of missed throws that he made, but he didn't really seem that uncomfortable when he was being flushed out. And he wasn't trying to force things, with the game being so sped up with him being flushed out of the pocket. I think that that's just another testament to his maturity as a quarterback.
yeah. One thing that David Lawrence brings up often on the network is a stat that we don't talk about too often, but needs to be talked about: recovering your own fumbles. KU had
Yes.
two in this game, and they got on both of them. West Virginia had one fumble, and KU got that. So, we'll talk about how KU had two takeaways and West Virginia had none, and that's important, but it could have been two. KU got back on those fumbles, and they got to make sure they have the ball security. They do end up +2 in the turnover battle, which played a part in the 31-point victory as well. But yeah, kind of cleaning up a few of those things fundamentally. That's going to be necessary against a Cincinnati team who's going to pack more of a punch, I would think, next week when they come to town. But yeah, special teams was great. It was great seeing the offensive line in the second half get going. Le'Shawn showed us what he can do, what we knew he could do when he said he was going to come to Kansas after last season. So that was a plus as well. And you mentioned a feel good for Trey Lathan, a sack and an interception against a few of his former teammates.
Yeah, right. A revenge game, which you obviously love to see that. But one thing about Le'Shawn Williams, and I want your opinion on this. Do you think that this game was enough to prove to Lance Leipold and Coach Zabrowski that maybe he could be the number one guy, or is it still Highshaw's to lose, right? Because Highshaw obviously had to go out with an injury, and that's the thing that we're talking about is kind of next man up. Le'Shawn Williams proved himself. So is he going to be now sort of that mainstay, that number one guy from here on out, even when Highshaw kind of gets healthy?
Well, hopefully Highshaw is, we don't know his status. Like I said, we'll find out more on Wednesday when that availability report comes out. Hopefully he's able to go. I think no matter what, though, if they're both healthy enough to play, it's going to be a 1A, 1B thing
Sure.
throughout the season. Time will tell, but certainly we enjoyed watching Le'Shawn. It was nice seeing him get going, get a little shimmy and shake. There were some nice blocks on the outside as well because the last couple games, all we saw was, those dive plays or plays that essentially looked a lot like dive plays up the middle that didn't go for very much. And
Right.
you didn't see a lot of tackle breaking. You didn't see a lot of juking and shimmying. But on that 62-yard run, that was fun.
I think that's the thing is that Kansas does have a very good zone scheme. It's just in terms of the decision making of the running backs, which goes back to, hey, Devin Neal was so good at being patient and waiting for the play to develop on those zone plays. So I think that it's kind of been a slow process, but you're starting to see that, especially with Le'Shawn Williams, kind of being patient and understanding, oh, I have to wait for this hole to open up. Once it opens up, bam, he's gone. And I mean, yeah, talk about perimeter blocking, right? I mean, on that 62-yard run, Levi Wentz was downfield just blocking everybody, getting rid of the safety, getting rid of those corners right behind him. And obviously Le'Shawn Williams, he broke like 4 tackles on
Yeah.
that play as well. But yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you that these guys have no quit in them. And it's a testament once again, right? I mean, these new guys, there were so many question marks of them coming in of, hey, where is Le'Shawn Williams going to fit? Where is Levi Wentz and Emmanuel Henderson and Bryson Canty and Cam Pickett, all these different guys, and they're sliding into those roles relatively well. And, we still haven't seen the full potential of a guy like Bryson Canty. We still haven't seen the full potential of a guy like Cam Pickett because he's been dealing with a little bit of injury. We know that he can do some stuff in the backfield as well. We know that Jim Zabrowski has so many different fun things kind of thrown together with some 21, 22 personnel, that kind of thing. Like I said, with that triple option, the fake triple option with the wheel route on the back end. I mean, there's just so many fun wrinkles that Jim Zabrowski has, and he has so many fun toys to kind of play around with. And, they just need to be able to stay healthy. And I think that they can really do some damage against the Cincinnati team coming up next week.
Yeah, KU didn't play a perfect game by any stretch, but special teams was close to perfect. Emmanuel Henderson, it was announced earlier today, he was named the co-Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week. No surprise there. Had a 44-yard kick return, also had a 94-yard kick return touchdown where he ran upwards of 20 miles per hour. So that was cool for sure. Also, one other scheduling note. Of course, we have Cincinnati coming up at the booth here at 11 a.m. on Saturday, but the UCF game in Orlando is going to be a 6:30 kick. KU UCF on October 4th, 6:30 p.m. So make sure you get your plans set for that. KU over West Virginia in the Big 12 opener, 41-10. And man, it's going to be a joyous week talking to a lot of our guests. We're going to be joined by Kevin Flaherty from the Kansas City Sports Network. After this, you're listening to ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com.
This is Dale Highshaw, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com. We're going to be joined in studio now by Kevin Flaherty from the Kansas City Sports Network. Kevin hosts the Pay Heed podcast and the Verbal Commitment podcast. Great to have you back on, Kevin, on our Monday schedule, and it's a victorious one. We woke up yesterday, enjoyed a beautiful Sunday after a victory at the booth on Saturday, but a West Virginia team not very good this year, came to town, and an opportunity for KU to feel good in their Big 12 opener, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it was kind of a measuring stick game, right, guys? I think you felt going in like the spread was maybe a little high, but at the same time felt like if KU was somehow able to exceed that spread and win, then you would start having to look at this Kansas team being a pretty effective team. If it was a really close game, if Kansas had lost, all of a sudden, you're 2-2, you've lost your last 2 games, you lost the Missouri game, and you're starting to maybe have some questions. And so for them to come out and establish themselves the way that they did, were never really challenged over the course of the game, was about as good a thing as you can ask for. And I loved you bringing up the sort of the late West Virginia touchdown drive, because there's nothing that coaches love more in the history of mankind
Yeah.
than a big win where they can still come into film session and say, you got to fix this, you got to fix this, you got to fix this.
Let's ignore the 3 hours and 6 minutes.
Sure.
But how about this? How about this 7-minute drive? No, absolutely. Yeah, Jalen Henderson, he's fast. 95-yard drive, kind of out of nowhere. It was like, why didn't they go to this dude earlier? I mean, obviously they know more than us. But anyway, what was interesting about that game, like you said, it never really felt like West Virginia had a chance. I mean, when Leif Marjan hit that field goal for KU to go up 20-3 at half, with how bad West Virginia's offense looked and how dominant KU was defensively and on special teams, it was like, man, this is a 3-possession game. We're going to play this out. We're not going to, count our chickens before they hatch or anything. But it really was, hey, we've got a better team and we're proving it.
Yeah, sure. And you think about the way that an offensive coordinator calls the game, right? I think it was pretty apparent fairly early on in this game that it was like, hey, if West Virginia is going to win this game, it's going to be because Kansas's offense gave the ball away. And
Yeah.
so, from a flow standpoint, I know everybody's like, man, you got to hang 65 on everybody
Right.
and call all of the blue chip plays every single time. But I think there was a point in there where you started to realize, and actually even before the field goal, when they scored the touchdown to go up 17-3, I kind of turned to the guy next to me and said, is that enough points right there to
Right.
win? And it wound up being, and I was kind of joking, but at the same time, I do think that there was that feeling that, hey, as long as Kansas's offense isn't giving away short fields, isn't giving away scores itself, that Kansas is going to cruise in this thing because West Virginia just didn't have the horses offensively.
Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network from the Pay Heat podcast, joins us here in studio. And Kevin, I mean, talking about a tale of two games, right?
Yep.
It's the Missouri game, no run game whatsoever. All of a sudden, Le'Shawn Williams kind of emerges after Daniel Highshaw goes out and actually goes back in the locker room and changes into street clothes. And they were able to establish that run kind of later in the game. Just talk about, do you think that was sort of a point of emphasis in the bye week, or do you think that it was sort of a Le'Shawn Williams kind of a, hey, I'm the next man up. I really have to prove myself. What did you think of sort of the run scheme against West Virginia and how Kansas handled that?
Yeah, it was probably a little bit of both, right? I think that one of the things that people maybe slept on with West Virginia is that's a pretty good defensive front.
Yeah.
That's the strength of that team. And so you weren't necessarily going to line up and just run the ball on West Virginia. They had, I think they came into the game allowing 2.4 yards per carry. And so it was always going to be something where maybe your success rate wasn't going to be as high, but you wanted to hit on some big plays here and there. And obviously Le'Shawn broke out. I thought Bryce Foster looked about as healthy as he has this year. Is a pretty solid game for him. Kobe Baines is actually having probably pretty close to an all Big 12 level season. And then, you're seeing Enrique Cruz really get better week after week after week. And so the timing is a little bit off at times, and the success rate isn't necessarily where you would want it to be. But the other thing that I thought was interesting, guys, was obviously Le'Shawn broke the long run. At the end of the game, every single person who carried the ball averaged 4 yards per carry or better
Yeah.
for Kansas. And so
Yeah.
that sort of consistency through, I think, was pretty impressive too.
For sure, especially after a slow start up
Yep.
front. They were able to put it together and credit KU. What did you see from JD in this one? Obviously, he had a couple balls that were not on target because he was on the run or whatever reason, and a couple drops again for KU pass catchers, but ends up throwing for 3 touchdowns. And again, in that first half when it was a little bit tougher sledding for KU offensively, he used his legs.
Yeah, it was interesting because everything seemed hard, right? Like there weren't a whole lot of throws that felt like, okay, he just that was right on the money. Even you think about the bubble screens. You had the one to Henderson on the left side where Henderson went down to a knee and was down where he caught it, and then he
Right.
threw another one to
It was
Henderson
high.
on the other side, and he had to go up and try and catch it. And so even some of the plays that you would consider typically sort of layups we're not there. And you're going to have that sometimes, or maybe you're not going to be as sharp with your arm. I'm glad you brought up the legs, though, because he had a tremendous day running the ball. But even beyond that, I think the thing that he does that gets so overlooked is Jalon Daniels is so hard to sack. He really is. And I'm not sure there's a quarterback in America who is better at dealing with pressure in terms of avoiding sacks. Last year, there were a couple games. One of them was the West Virginia game last year. One of them was the K-State game where he was under significant amounts of pressure and he was only sacked 10 times all year. I think he's been sacked, 2 or 3 times, 3 times this year because
I
he
think
wasn't
so,
sacked
yeah.
against West Virginia. So 3 times in 4 games, he makes the offensive line right in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because, without stabbing some of our former players or anything like that, when Jalon Daniels was a 17-year-old freshman in 2020,
Oh gosh.
he got some practice, right? He got some practice back there trying to avoid sacks. And now he's got NFL draft picks who are blocking for him. So a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, hey, that's experience, right?
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
it is.
Well, when Bill Whittemore was here in the 2000s, and then they had Todd Reesing, somebody asked, about sort of similarities between the two, and Mangino was like, Todd Reesing runs because he wants to. He's like, Bill ran because he was running for his life.
Right.
He had to,
And so,
yeah.
and so Jalon, kind of had to avoid a lot of stuff, like you said, as a freshman. Got just crushed as a freshman. I
Oh,
mean, just
Yeah.
assassinated game after game, and just some humongous hits. And that's part of the reason I laugh sometimes. Obviously, Jalon does have a little bit of an injury history, but whenever somebody tries to bring up that kid's toughness, I'm just like, man,
oh,
you haven't
absolutely.
seen some of the shots that this guy took, and just kept getting up. And to be fair, he took one of those shots against West Virginia too,
Right.
when he got out and had the targeting call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
No,
sure. David, sorry, Dan, real quick, I want to say David Lawrence brought up in the past that in however long he's covered KU, upwards of 40 years, that game in Waco when JD
Yeah.
was out there starting was the first time, or maybe the only time, that he has legitimately feared for the health of one of our student athletes. I
The
mean, that's how
Oklahoma
it
game
was.
that year was
Yeah.
just as
Oh,
bad from what I
Yeah.
remember. So yeah, it
yeah.
was he went through some stuff to
Yeah.
get to this point, and now gets to reap the rewards
Yeah.
of an offensive line blocking for him that has been actually recruited and legitimately Big 12
Right.
level.
Right.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Kevin Flaherty, KCSN, joins us here, and I'll flip the script a little bit. So we'll talk more, kind of about the defense, right? Because Dean Miller, this is probably one of the best games that
Yep.
we've seen him play, as well as Justice Finkley finally
Yep.
emerging as kind of a guy. I understand he has a really good PFF rate, but we haven't really been saying his name a whole heck of a lot. What do you think about the pass rush in general, being able to get a lot of pressure on Markiel?
Yeah, and I heard you guys talking right before I came in, where you were talking about the fact that Markiel had nowhere to go with the ball, and the funny thing is, he didn't have any chance to look for anybody either.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
the back end did a great job, but those two halves sort of have to interact, and Kansas did a tremendous job at getting pressure. I thought DK McDonald did a nice job the couple times where there were big plays of sending extra guys and not giving them a chance to get comfortable. But Justice Finkley has done a lot this year, kind of the whole behind the scenes where it's like, hey, you don't make the tackle, but maybe your twist opens something up for
Yeah.
somebody else who's able to make it. And obviously Lance Leipold has been so high on his leadership. But man, to see Dean Miller back looking like Dean Miller, and to know the year that Leroy Harris has had, and now Justice Finkley starting to look good. Alex Bray had a big quarterback
Yeah,
hit
that's
as
right.
well. We've talked so much about that defensive tackle group and the depth and the fact that they can just roll through guys with very little drop off. How about that defensive end group now all of a sudden looking like they can go 4 or 5 deep as well with very little, if any, drop off?
Yeah, for sure. And sticking on the defense, I mean, talk about a guy who's really kind of emerged, and we're starting to really know his name. A guy who we didn't really have super high expectations for. We expected him to be a player, but Trey Lathan.
Yeah.
Trey Lathan revenge game, obviously. We had a pick and a sack, but just throughout the entire year, he's really been able to step up, especially with some injuries in that linebacker room.
Yeah, I remember talking to you guys when Kansas actually got Trey Lathan, and one of the reasons I was so high on him was you went back and watched the West Virginia tape, and he was eating blocks he didn't have to eat, basically, because that defensive line was a little bit freelancy, and so you could tell there were times where he was trying to, sort of read and react on something, and all of a sudden he'd have a face mask hitting him out of nowhere, and I think since he's been kept relatively clean, you're starting to see the athleticism, the instincts, all of the different things that he's doing. And he just gets better week after week after week. And when you add in Bengali Kamara, I thought John Kamara did some really nice things
Yeah.
as well. This is a more athletic group of linebackers than I can remember Kansas having in forever. I mean, it's been a really
Right.
long time. I mean, Kansas has had maybe one guy who could run, like a Ben Heaney or a Joe Deneen, but they haven't typically had a group like this that has the kind of athleticism where they can make plays sideline to sideline like those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even going back to the Mangino era, you had some KU legends at the linebacker
Yeah.
spot with Reed and Mortensen and Rivera, but these guys are so quick, and
Yeah.
there's just so many of them. The athleticism, the length, it's really special. Any concerns from you on the safety side of things? We heard from Coach Leipold a little bit earlier today. We don't know what the availability report's going to look like on Wednesday, but we do know that you're not going to have Devin Dye at least for the first half against Cincinnati. A little bit of adversity on the back end.
Yeah, Taylor Davis got a little banged up. Mason Ellis didn't play as much. I think he got a little nicked up during the game, and so you're seeing them have to reach into that depth a little bit, and that is one of the positions where I think maybe you aren't quite as deep, but I don't think it's in any sort of danger zone or anything like that, especially with Devin Dye coming back for the second half. But it is one of those positions that really bears looking at. How about we've been talking about all these guys on defense. How about how much better Lyric Rawls has gotten
Oh
sort of
yeah.
week after week after week
Yeah,
too
2
in
Yeah.
that safety
PBUs as
group.
well. Yeah, he looks really
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah, no, Lyric Rawls has really, kind of been a surprise. And Kevin, I wanted to kind of continue with the defense because I don't know how much of it is skewed by the fact that West Virginia was on their third string running back, right? I mean,
Sure.
do you see this Kansas defense really continuing to emerge and the pass rush continuing into Cincinnati? I mean, we understand the line for the West Virginia game is 12.5. I believe it opened up at like 6.5 and but all the way down to 3.5 for the Cincinnati game. What are you seeing out of them? And do you think that it's kind of all smoke and mirrors as of right now? I guess that's maybe not the right term to use, but just because of the fact that they were on their third string running back and Brendan Sorsby, he can do it on his legs. Cincinnati's got kind of a sneaky good team. What are you seeing out of them?
Yeah, and you've got Tui Walker at running back,
Yeah,
who's
right.
kind of a power back, and Sorsby. The thing that makes him so tough as a runner is just how big he is. I mean,
Mhm.
he's a mobile guy, but once he gets out of that pocket and he's getting that second level, he's as big, if not bigger, than your linebackers, and certainly bigger than your defensive backs. And so you really, really, really have to get multiple guys to the point of attack. And we saw against Missouri, when you had sort of one guy trying to tackle Ahmad Hardy, it didn't go super well. And I
Right.
think that was one of the things that I was interested to see against Ty Edwards. It didn't wind up playing out that way. Was in the backyard brawl. I think Ty Edwards had over 90 yards after contact against Pitt, and so you were kind of like, okay, is Kansas going to be able to make those tackles, stop a guy right at the point of attack? All of a sudden, you're having a two-back running attack where both of those guys out on the field at the same time with Walker and Sorsby, who are going to get yards after contact. And so it's that much more important to kind of be in the right spot, to gang tackle, to read your keys and all those things. And I realize all of that is coach speak, but the point is just that you don't want to have a corner being the only guy tackling Brennan Sorsby. You don't
Right.
want to have a safety being the only guy who has a shot at Tui Walker. And I think that's the interesting thing about this game to me is I thought West Virginia with Ty Edwards maybe would have challenged in some of the same ways that we had seen Kansas struggle against Missouri. I think Cincinnati is very capable of checking some of those same Missouri boxes, and Kansas did a good job on Bo Pribula in terms of not letting him get out and scramble a whole lot. But obviously, the Missouri running backs had a really good day.
Yeah, they really did, and kind of want to mesh together that one drive that DK McDonald's going to bring up in film room this week with the challenge of Sorsby this upcoming Saturday. Jalen Henderson, there's a reason he's not starting in the eyes of Rich Rod, and certainly we didn't get to see him throw the ball once or twice. But he ran for 77 yards. He ends up being the leading rusher
Yeah.
for West Virginia in that game and had a 95-yard touchdown drive. And obviously he was getting out in space and making magic happen for West Virginia in their lone touchdown scoring drive. Sorsby is you hear this in sports a lot, the head of the snake. There's
Yes.
no question about that. I mean, you're going to beat Cincinnati if Brendan Sorsby has a bad game. He's accounted for 12 touchdowns, 8 passing, 4 rushing. He also has an 82% completion percentage. So aside from the tackling, what's Kansas going to have to do to make sure that he is not going to be at his best? Because if he is, KU could be in trouble.
Yeah, I think you need to take out chunk plays. You can't let Jeff Caldwell get over the top, and Jeff Caldwell's a guy that some KU fans will,
Right.
will remember a year ago
Legend.
from Lindenwood. But at the same time, you have to make him go down the field sort of 4 yards at a time, 5 yards at a time. And then when you get in those money downs, like we talked about after the Missouri game, you have to get stops in those situations. You can't let them continue to stack up plays because they're getting to 3rd and 5 and then converting 3rd and 5. And so I do think Kansas's defensive line, Cincinnati's offensive line played well against Nebraska, but generally speaking, hasn't really been challenged. I think Kansas's defensive line does have a chance to fare well in that matchup, but you really have to get some negative plays going because To your point, I think Sorsby is like top 15 or so in the Big 12 in rushing. He leads Cincinnati in rushing, and he's having the year he is as a passer. I think, is he still the number one ranked quarterback in Pro Football Focus?
Is that what it is?
for
He's
maybe,
yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting because he's only got 39 passing attempts
Yeah,
this season, but 45 carries.
yeah,
So yeah, he's. I mean, we're gonna see a game where he probably 15, 20 times is running the ball.
yeah, for sure. And so I think the big thing is you have to make him grind it out, and you have to make him execute over and over again. And then when you do get him in those situations where, hey, it's 3rd and 7, you got to get off the field. That was the thing that changed that whole Missouri game. I mean, people want to talk about the Emmanuel Henderson drop, not going for it on 4th down. Missouri wouldn't have scored the points that they did if Kansas was able to get off the field in those sort of 3rd down and 4th down situations. And so that's going to be maybe the biggest key to this game is when you get Cincinnati into 3rd and 3, get Cincinnati into 3rd and 5, can you get off the field?
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network, joins us here as we're recapping the West Virginia win, 41-10. Kansas won last weekend, taking on Cincinnati at 11 o'clock at the booth this coming weekend. Kevin, I wanted to switch over to basketball.
Sure.
As boot camp just got over. What's the over under on how many minutes you would last on boot camp? I'm right around like 6 or 7 minutes myself. Also, I believe today might be the first official day for practice in the NCAA. Just give us your overarching view of this squad, because I mean, as it continues to develop, we're thinking, man, this is a very athletic squad, way more athletic than it was last year. A lot of new faces, but you still feel pretty good about the roster that we have.
The first time they run a suicide or whatever, I'm
You're out.
I am absolutely out. So I would not last very long at boot camp, and they have to do the drill a lot of times where they run and like touch the glass. I'm automatically disqualified on that thing. I have pretty much negative hops at this point in my life, but no, this is a fascinating KU team, and I think one of the reasons it is I realized people wanted them to go out and get that Darian Williams or that guy that you felt like would be a quote unquote flag bearer next to Darren Peterson. But also, Darren Peterson could be the best player in college basketball this year.
Absolutely.
He projected number 1 pick. And then you have Flory Badunga, who a lot of people think is a potential first round pick. You have Cole Rosario, a guy that, NBA scouts are tracking. Paul Mbia, a guy that NBA scouts are tracking. And so I think it's kind of weird because this is a team that I think has more talent than maybe people are giving them credit for. We've talked about him, El Marco Jackson, former McDonald's All-American, obviously got in his head a little bit as a freshman, but there's a lot more talent on this team, I think, than maybe people are giving them credit for. And I think when you look at the way the season is going to play out, schedule is so tough, especially early on. It would not surprise me to see this team kind of struggle a little bit out of the gate. But then by the time you get into February and March, this be a team that you feel like, hey, this is a group that's really capable of going on a deep run. You guys remember the Kemba Walker team that won the national title? That was a team that defended pretty well. They were in close games, and at the end in close games, they had the ball in Kemba Walker's hands, and it's not a bad formula, and it's something that I feel like Kansas can kind of do as well, because I think this team is going to be really good defensively. And then at the end of the game, if it's a close game, if it's 61-63 or whatever, you're turning the ball over to Darren Peterson and letting him be Darren Peterson.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll speak a little bit more before we let you go, because you brought up a really good point that I think is so interesting when people do the preseason rankings and all that. Kansas is going to have a lot of pros on this team.
Yes.
Would you have said that either of the last couple of years? I mean, 2 years ago, you did have Johnny Furphy and Kevin McCullough on that team. But if you look at teams that go deep in the tournament, the teams that cut down the nets, what's in common? They've got pros. They've got bona fide NBA guys. KU hasn't had that really the past couple of years, and you just listed off 4 or 5, and there's at least 2 or 3 more that could at least have a shot to be drafted or signed by an NBA team. The depth of this team from a talent standpoint, it just seems like it's way better than what it has been, which is funny because they're going to be ranked way lower in the preseason.
Yeah, it's funny. When I worked for CBS, I wrote several articles basically on what it takes to be a national champion. And one of the things I looked at was I was like, surely somewhere somebody along the line won a national title with like a Hoosiers type team, right? Where they didn't have any NBA guys, and No, that hasn't happened since the ABA NBA merger, which I think is 1976, if I remember. No team has won a national title without what would be considered a first round pick.
Wow.
No, everybody has had at least one top 30 pick, and every team but one actually had a first round pick. The exception was, I think Steve Alford was taken like 26th, and the draft that year, because the NBA didn't have as many teams, had like 22 first round picks.
Sure. Okay.
But yeah, basically you have to have a first round pick to win a national title. No team has done it since before I was born. And I mean, you guys can see I've got some gray, coming in and everything.
You and me
so,
both, brother.
so yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I feel like not a lot of people sort of circle or talk about. And it was one of the things that as last year really went on, and I was trying to think, hey, is this team capable of going on a run and winning a national title? I was looking around and I was like, where's the first round pick? Because if every title team has one, where's he at? And I mean, technically you could say, Flory could have been there and you could have gone with that, but generally speaking, that they didn't have that guy. This year's team, I think, depending on when guys come out, what their stock is, you could have 4 guys getting sort of that first round type mention or where they're going in that range. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you know what? We're going to be ranked lower, but I assume you're like us and you like that compared to the last couple of years. Hey,
no number one,
yeah,
right?
no
Right.
number
So,
one, no number one. And
one.
like you said, it wouldn't be a shock to see KU take a loss or 2 in the early stages. It'll be great though. That's great because then everybody gets a chance to just cook on their keyboards and just
Right.
you
Oh,
just
yeah.
I absolutely love it. And then the sky is falling, all that. But no, we're excited for it. Kevin Flaherty, Kansas City Sports Network. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully next week we're talking about another big win on the gridiron.
Yeah, that'd be pretty great. And honestly, I was a little surprised. I don't know if you guys were. Kansas didn't pick up any votes in the AP poll.
That was
had a couple in the coaches poll, but
No
I think,
votes was surprising.
But I think
I got a bone to pick with Henry Greenstein about that.
There you go. But next week, if Kansas beats Cincinnati, it would surprise me if there weren't at least a couple people throwing Kansas votes in there.
Absolutely. Well, hey, there's a world, and it's not that far-fetched of a world where KU's 4-1 going to Orlando. You can beat UCF. If that happens, how about that game in Lubbock on October 11th? That'd be a lot of fun. Kevin, thanks again. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right. After this, we are going to hear from Jalon Daniels post-game KU over West Virginia on Saturday. Thanks for listening on ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com.
Hey, this is Cole Ballard, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Let's hear from KU quarterback Jalon Daniels. KU 41, West Virginia 10. JD threw for 3 touchdowns in Saturday's win.
I saw you looking at the screen too.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of crazy because like at first you see me react like, dang, ref, where's the flag? And then I'm like, oh no, I actually do feel this. Hold on, let me turn it back over. But it hurt. But at the end of the day, it's the game of football. I was able to pop back up, be able to finish the game. So that's what I love.
You were in the next snap, I think, right? There were like 5 flags, hats, and everything on the field after all that. So
I mean, at the end of the day, I get the chance to be able to play the game that I love, and I want to be able to play in every single snap that I can. As long as I'm, getting the opportunity to be able to go out there and play, I'm going to do everything that I can to be able to do so.
What do you think of Emmanuel's kick return touchdown?
Bruh, I mean, y'all got the chance to be able to see the speed that we was talking about.
Yep.
I mean, as soon as I seen him break the first defender, I said, oh my God, he might do it. He got past the last person. I was like, all right, yeah, see you later.
It was a sequence before and after halftime that was really effective for you guys. What was it like to be able to get the scores before and afterward in terms of the flow of the game overall?
It was great. I mean, first of all, it was great execution. Offensively, to be able to even, 45 seconds left when we got the ball, to be able to drive down the field and be able to, get 3 points coming out of the half. Those are situations that we practice a lot in practice, and to be able to see us be able to do it on the game field meant a lot.
How important was it to open conference play 1-0 for this team?
Say it again?
How important was it to open conference play 1-0?
Oh, very important. I mean, first of all, we always go in with the 1-0 mentality, with everything that we do. At the end of the day, we got the chance to be able to win tonight, but we know going into the next week, we're going to go in with another 1-0 mentality.
West Virginia came in known for sacks and tackles for loss. They had no sacks and only 1 tackle for loss. Just talk about how well your offense schemed against their defense.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I got to give hats off to West Virginia because they did a lot of things in the secondary, which is, it kind of minimized a lot of the things that we did passing-wise. But when you do a lot of things to be able to take away the pass, it opens up the run a lot. So we got the chance to be able to see a lot of guys with the ball in their hands in the run game, and I think that we were able to execute a lot down on the front seven.
Jalon with LaShawn had a pretty good game. That was his first big game as J-Hawk. Talk about him.
I mean, to be able to see him grab a touchdown and also be able to run a touchdown, those are things that you love to see out of your running back because it shows the versatility that our running back room has. And if we're talking about his last run, you see how many people he may miss. You know, he doesn't really go down easily, and that's something that you like to be able to see, especially when you're watching it from the back.
For you, some quarterback draws come in there.
Yeah.
Picked up some yards. Talk about your run game, man. I haven't seen a lot of quarterback draws.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, they did a lot of things in the secondary which tried to minimize what we did passing-wise. I mean, they looked at film and saw a lot of the things that we were able to do, and they tried to do everything that they could to be able to put their DBs in situations to be able to stop us passing-wise. And when you do that, it puts a lot of stress on the front seven to be able to stop the run. So that's something that we were able to notice going to the end of the half, and that allowed us to be able to put ourselves in a position to be able to get 3 going into the halftime.
With Leishon's receiving touchdown, why is it so effective when you guys do that misdirection with the speed option? I feel like I've seen you guys do that very effectively a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of misdirection happening, and you know, we already do a lot of stuff that we do offensively, pre-snap motions, pre-snap shifts, a lot of pre-snap communication, and you know, it kind of messes with the defensive eyes a lot. So I think that is just something that we like to do, and I think we're going to continue to keep doing it.
Talk about the next man up mentality out of Leishon, right? I mean, Daniel Highshot came out of that game early, and Leishon had the game of his life. I mean, just talk about that mentality of him as well as everybody else on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we talk about it a lot in this program. At the end of the day, you never know when your opportunity is going to come up. We have a lot of examples of that. I mean, my first time being able to start under Coach Leipold came after a starting quarterback getting hurt, and then the second string quarterback getting hurt, and then me being thrown in the third string, and I ended up starting next week. So at the end of the day, we know what we have to do. Everybody works hard to be able to make sure they're preparing like they're the one starting, and that just showed that, you know, we continue to keep doing what we do inside of these walls.
Speaking more to that, Jalon, Coach said, you know, even before Friday, you knew you guys were ready to go. How much did that, you know, feed into the prep and everything that we saw out here today?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's seen the preparation of what we did during practice this week. He got the chance to be able to see the bye week. The bye week helped us a lot because at the end of the day, you know, when you have guys banged up, you get the chance to be able to get that week off to be able to make sure the body, you know, gets back together. And I think that, you know, we had a good chance to be able to come out here fresh and be able to make sure that we had an extra week of opportunity, and we showed it today.
Kind of a tale of two games in terms of, you know, the run play, right? You weren't able to establish a run against Mizzou. All of a sudden, you're doing everything on the ground. Talk about just, like, what did you guys do in the bye week to kind of emphasize, hey, we have to establish a run? At
the end of the day, I mean, it's all about being able to go out there and, you know, to want that. You know, I think that the front seven did a great job of, you know, taking on the challenge. At the end of the day, we knew that what we did 2 weeks ago wasn't good enough to how we wanted to be able to perform offensively. So when you continue to harp on that and be able to, you know, keep on hammering that down every single day, it showed today on the field.
What did you think of Trey getting to be a captain and then having a sack and a pick against his former team?
Man, Trey Lathan has been doing a lot of great things in this program, both on and off the field, and to be able to see everything that he does, to be able to put himself in a position to be able to go out there and make those plays, you got the chance to be able to see that tonight.
How important was it to start 1-0 in Big 12?
I mean, first of all, it's always hard to be able to come back from 0-1, but at the end of the day, when you're starting off right, it puts your team in a mindset that, you know, we can do this. And that 1-0 allows us to be able to go in next week, but go in with the mentality of we need to go 1-0 again.
That's JD6 after the win on Saturday. KU coasting to a 31-point win to open Big 12 play against West Virginia. JD didn't have the best game statistically, did still throw for 3 touchdowns. Dan, only a 50% completion percentage, a couple of drops mixed in, not quite as sharp on the run, but man, he made every play when he needed to, including with his legs in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not his best game through the air, but like you said, on his legs, I think he did a stellar job in terms of getting flushed out. And Flaherty even talked about this a little bit about just, you know, how he's so hard to take down in the backfield because he just continues to make plays with his legs. And we haven't seen a quarterback like this since probably Todd Reesing. And even he said that. It's like Todd likes to run. I think Jalon likes to run too. Jalon likes to get flushed out of there and try to make those plays. Now, granted, he's not forcing things like he used to, but still, Jalon is doing such a good job of avoiding those sacks, avoiding those tackles for loss, and continuing to make plays on his legs as well. So obviously, Jalon has grown and matured as a quarterback, and we've certainly seen that throughout this year. Cincinnati, they have a really good rush, and they have Dante Corleone, who's projected, I believe he was projected preseason Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. So that's going to be obviously a tough matchup for JD, but I have confidence that he's going to be able to continue to do it on his legs as well as find his receivers. And that chemistry with his receivers is continuing to grow. Is it where we want it to be as of right now? I mean, probably not, because of the fact that we were so spoiled with just so much consistency in the wide receiver room, for the last couple of years with Skinner, Arnold, and Graham. But now you're starting to build that chemistry, and it's continuing to build. So I think we're going to see more of a lot of these guys, and hopefully Cam Pickett and Bryce Canty get back to 100%. So we have even more wrinkles in that offense.
Yeah, well, it was nice seeing a little bit of help for JD. Le'Shawn with 129 yards rushing, of course, also had that receiving touchdown. Plus, hey, how about the schemes of Jim Zebrowski? We talked about that a lot. Jim Zebrowski, a mastermind in regards of play calling, a mastermind offensively, and there were a couple wide open touchdowns that KU had. Of course, the Le'Shawn Williams one on that beautiful triple option play, if you will, that Le'Shawn was wide open on, and then of course the first touchdown, Levi Wentz wide open.
Yeah,
I don't know
high
what
school
West
wide
Virginia
open,
was
man.
doing there, but that was a 4th down conversion for KU. So that was Jalon Daniels post game, the victory. After this, we're gonna take a whip around the rest of the world of sports in our Case of the Monday segment. Thanks for listening to ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com.
This is Daniel Highshaw, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Kellerman and Daniel Courtwright back here for Rock Chalk Sports. Dan, was it
Yes.
tough getting out of bed after your weekend-long bender?
Man, I'm glad you ask me this every Monday.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
gives you a
get-
chance to reflect.
I didn't go too crazy this weekend. I had a couple. Actually,
You
I
were
swung-
working the game.
Yeah, I was working the game, obviously. So got back late on Saturday. Just went back, watched the USC Michigan State game, I
yes,
believe.
yes. I love football after dark, man. Big Ten
yeah,
after dark
Big Ten.
over on the West Coast.
Big Ten after dark. Spartans versus Trojans. So shout out to the Iliad. And then also, yeah, I think Sunday actually swung by your house. I incidentally, I
That was actually weird.
It was
I
crazy.
get a phone call and Dan says, "Peek your head at your front door."
Yeah, it was weird. But I have a couple of buddies I went to go watch a Chiefs game with, and it just so happened they live like 2 doors down from Sean. And I was like, "Is that Sean's car?" Like,
And just so
that's
everybody
weird.
knows, my address is
Yes, yeah. His social security number and his address. We'll put it at the bottom of the screen. We'll put that in post. But yeah, no, that was so weird. Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, no, I had maybe a beer or a beverage or two.
Yes.
Yesterday for the Chiefs game.
I
but,
actually I had 0 beverages during the Chiefs game, which especially when the Chiefs play at night, I enjoy having a couple beers. But I
Sure.
was so exhausted, and I was like, you know what? It was 22-9. That was probably the right game to not have any. Just enjoy my
Sure,
water
yeah.
because that was not good football.
No, it
not
was-
enjoyable to watch.
No, it actually drove me to drink. It was it was that disgusting. But yeah, we're gonna start off our Case of the Mondays segment with none other than Oklahoma State.
Happy birthday to Mike Gundy. He's 40
Happy
today.
40th birthday, Mike Gundy. He's officially a man.
Yes.
He's a man. He's 40. Oklahoma State, this is tough. We talked about it a little bit in the opening segment, but they wound up losing on Friday to their in-state rival, I guess you could call it that, Tulsa.
Apparently, it's not his birthday. That's a bummer. His
Oh.
birthday was August 12th,
Oh, I think you said it was his birthday.
but he is 40.
Good
as you
for
can
him.
see.
He is 40. Okay.
Yeah.
He-
I don't know
he's
why I
been-
thought it was his birthday.
He's been 40 for.
It's the anniversary of him announcing that he's 40.
That's
so it's
right.
not his birthday. It's the
It's been
anniversary of when that
18
was.
years since he announced
18
that he was
years.
40.
Yeah.
So shout out to him, and he's remained 40 for 18 years.
Yes.
Good for him.
Hey,
I
you
didn't
know
think it was
what?
possible.
For the 16 years after he announced that he was 40, Oklahoma State football was in a good spot.
That's true.
These last 2 years, it's been poopy.
No, it has been absolutely horrible. So Oklahoma State, they lost to Tulsa in Stillwater, by the way. It was a sellout. For the first time since 1951, Tulsa beat them in Stillwater. Tulsa, by the way, not even projected to be a good program this year. Oklahoma State is in a bad situation. And if there's anybody who deserves this, it's Mike Gundy. And I have a bone to pick with Mike
Oh,
Gundy.
really?
Everybody knows this. I have been on record. He
Yes, the former coach that was your coach.
He completely changed Brian Nardo's defense. It was a 3-3-5. It worked out perfectly. And Mike Gundy said, nope, we're going to change it. And what happened that next week? They lost 33-6 against South Alabama. He blamed everything. Brian Nardo and Joe Bob Clements and all of those people were scapegoats for Mike Gundy to be able to keep his job when Mike Gundy changed their entire defense. Now Brian Nardo's with Charlotte, and Charlotte's doing pretty good. So, but yeah, no, again, I have a major bone to pick with him. Shout out to Clint Bowen. He's on that squad. Banks Bowen as well, local Lawrence kid. But yeah, so they lost, and it's actually really funny. So CFB Home, they tweeted out a joke that they're like, "Oh, Oklahoma State reportedly exploring a move to FCS Southland Conference," and the official Southland Conference Twitter account said straight. They posted a screenshot of Oklahoma State calling. They said straight to voicemail. So they don't want him. Another people said
so
the
bad.
Big Sky. They're looking at going to the Big Sky Conference. They even tweeted out. They said, "Hey, we don't want them. We're not going to touch that."
Yeah, it's looking bad.
It is a rough go of it for Oklahoma State as of right now. And I mean, it's got to be because Oklahoma State, again, we've talked about this. Gundy is so deeply ingrained into Stillwater and that program, and it's his, alum. It's his, his alma mater, and he played quarterback back there in the day. He's always loved Oklahoma State. At some point, you gotta break it off. You gotta break up with him, or at least let him ride off into the sunset and let him retire. Kind of come to a mutual agreement of, hey, Gundy, you're good, man.
Yeah.
Like, just get on out of here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think it'll ever happen?
Yes.
Do you think it'll ever happen that they fire him, or
Well,
do you think they'll frame it as a retirement?
Probably will be framed as retirement, but yeah, I think he'll be shown the door in some way. But I will say this: it's going to be really disappointing for their fans. Obviously, whenever you lose, it's disappointing. But if you look at their schedule, they were probably thinking before the season, this is a fortuitous schedule. They obviously are at Oregon in the non-con, but their home games are UT Martin and Tulsa. So you're thinking, okay, realistically, we're 2-1. Then their home games are Baylor, and again, be in the mind of an Oklahoma State fan. Their home games are Baylor, Houston, Cincinnati,
2 wins,
K-State. You're thinking we should win our games at home, right? We're Oklahoma State. So that's how many? 4 wins in conference play, so you're up to 6 wins. Road games, you're at Arizona. Maybe that's a loss, but again, you're a fan being a fan. At Texas Tech, that's a loss. At Kansas, well, KU went 5-7 last year, so that's how you're looking at that. And then you're also hosting Oklahoma State. That was the other or Iowa State rather. That was the other home game. So if you look at that, you're thinking, okay, well, we can take care of business at home. We're a top tier program in the conference. This is how it's going to be, and then we could steal a couple on the road. And now all of a sudden, you look at this schedule, and with how Oklahoma State has looked, let's just go through their games really quick. Hosting Baylor, loss. Right? I mean, at Arizona, loss. You're hosting Houston. They, under Willie Fritz, have completely been turned around. I mean, that's a coin flip game, I think, at best for Oklahoma State. Hosting Cincinnati, they're better than people thought they would be, right? At Texas Tech,
loss.
Automatic loss. At Kansas, we certainly like our guys there. K-State at home. How about Oklahoma State, K-State, November 15th? What are their records going to be then? How are those fan bases going to be feeling?
They might have to flex that to just radio only. Nobody's going to watch that game.
At UCF, can't feel good about winning on the road, and then Iowa State to close out. Where are the wins? So it's crazy how a bad non-conference season like Oklahoma State has had, a very bad non-conference season, can change things. And yeah, we'll see. I would guess Gundy gets the rest of the year, but if it doesn't improve, then yeah, he's probably done.
I tried to put myself into the mind of an Oklahoma State fan, and I felt my IQ points getting lower and lower. So thank you for making me do that. Case of money for the Detroit Tigers.
Detroit Tigers, yeah. So we haven't kept as close of tabs on the show on the Royals. It's a case of the Mondays for the Royals as well, because they're mathematically eliminated now. You know what their record is, Dan?
Is it 78-78?
78-78. How about that? So they're 6 games away from meeting my prediction of being exactly 81-81. But have you looked at the AL Central standings recently?
No, I guess I haven't.
Detroit, they're 1 game up on Cleveland. 1.
Wow.
Cleveland's only a game back. Cleveland lost yesterday, but they had won 10 in a row. And Cleveland 18-6 in their last 24. Man. Detroit is 26-36 in their last 62. So all of a sudden, there's more than just a path for Cleveland to win the AL Central. They're a game back with 6 to go, and Detroit's on the road for their final 6. Cleveland's at home. And the first series Cleveland has hosting those Tigers beginning tomorrow out by Lake Erie. So the Cleveland Guardians, which I absolutely hate that name, and I try to not even say it.
Cleveland Spiders.
They've got a chance to actually steal the AL Central as the Tigers are tanking here.
Which is so weird because the Cleveland Guardians, they had such a downward spiral after the All-Star break. I mean, they were a really hot team.
Well, not even that long ago. They were like
Right.
the team right there with the Royals.
Yeah.
Middling 500 team. But yeah, obviously you went 10 in a row. That helps.
They started hot, super hot, and then all of a sudden just went really, really bad. But then, like you said, they've been on a super, what you said, 10 in a row?
10 in a row, and they've won
Man.
18 of 24. Detroit was 59-34.
Oh.
And since then, they're 26-36. And there's no real reason for it from a personnel standpoint. But yeah, they have been tanking. And if they lose this series to Cleveland, then they're going to be tied with the Guardians heading into the final series, and Detroit has to go to Fenway Park for that, and Cleveland stays at home. So, yeah, that's been a tough stretch here. We've obviously been focused on the Royals, but all of a sudden Cleveland could do the craziest of things and steal the AL Central. The Tigers were the team last year that got hot late, and now they've been falling apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Case of the Mondays for the Fun Police. Actually, maybe the Fun Police are having a great day. So the WNBA, the Indiana Fever, they're right now in the postseason. If in case you didn't know, Caitlin Clark out for the year. Sophie Cunningham also out for the year. I mean, the Indiana Fever, all their top players have been out, but they're on the bench and they're cheering on their team in the playoffs, which is really cool. Caitlin Clark commented on an Indiana Fever post, because it had all of them celebrating on the bench after winning a game. She said, refs couldn't stop us. And then she commented again, said, elite bench mob. Well, apparently the WNBA fined Caitlin Clark for saying that $200. So you know what Caitlin Clark said? She said, I got fined $200 for this. She said, bench mob will be even more rowdy tomorrow. Let's go! Exclamation point, exclamation. I'm not going to read them all, but
No.
So shout out, exclamation point,
Okay,
exclamation point. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, shout out to, I mean, that's insane. Like I hate that. This goes back to where is the line in terms of
what's the problem?
She
she's
said something
on the
about
court.
It's like refs couldn't stop us.
Oh,
so
the refs
she
couldn't
said
stop
something
us.
about the refs, which whatever, that's fine. But don't fine them $200.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to turn a blind eye to stuff like this. If you're the league, who cares?
Where is the line? Where is the line of, because the NFL obviously dealt with this, where they went through a long stretch of, okay, we're gonna ban like everything, like no fun celebrations, and everybody just kept on getting fined, and everybody, nobody was celebrating anymore. And then they brought it back. They're like, hey, actually people can celebrate. And maybe some of the celebrations got a little too over the top. I don't know if Kareem Hunt was getting fined for this, but Kareem Hunt got a 15-yard penalty yesterday for like doing like a Superman thing, because they thought he did like a thumb across the neck. And it's like, well, okay, where is the, I don't know. It's dumb. But for Caitlin Clark celebrating on the sideline for her team winning a playoff game,
It's literally literally the WNBA like trying to puff out their chest, saying, "Hey, I'm still in charge here. I want to be in the news."
Yeah, what do you want them to do? Just sit there and not cheer on their team? It's absolutely ridiculous. So the WNBA are policed by the Fun Police. Unfortunate. Hey, Case of the Mondays, by the way. For what were you going to do?
I'm going to piggyback this. The 49ers as a whole.
Yeah, well, yes.
Start with the Chiefs Super Bowl champion.
So Case of the Mondays for two-time Super Bowl champion Sky Moore.
I love how you phrase that.
Yeah, two-time Super Bowl champion.
When you close your eyes tonight, I want you to remember that you said that on air.
Sky Moore, two-time Super Bowl champion.
Yes.
Super Bowl touchdown haver. He had a touchdown.
Scorer, I would say.
Touchdown scorer. There we go. So as of right now, Tyquan Thornton, the training camp darling, the guy who nobody assumed would potentially make the squad, has officially made the squad for the Chiefs, was actually the player of the game yesterday, Sunday Night Football, against the New York Giants. We'll get into that a little bit farther down the line. As of right now, Tyquan Thornton has more career touchdowns with the Chiefs through 3 games than Sky Moore did in 4 years.
Thank God Sky Moore has the rings talk.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
I am so, by the way,
was Sky Moore a first-round pick?
I believe so. Yeah, he was a first-round pick. When the Chiefs traded away Sky Moore for, I don't know, whatever it was, a washing machine or something, I went home and I drank a beer just to celebrate. I didn't have any champagne available, but I was so thrilled that we didn't have to watch Sky Moore play football anymore for the Chiefs.
Yeah, it was skyless.
It was a beautiful
second round,
Second round pick.
54th overall. I knew it was high, but yeah, that's a tough scene. But shout
Unreal.
out to Tyquan Thornton, a little bit more on him
Yes.
a little later. But it also is the case of the Mondays for the 49ers. Shout out to one of our producer, director, engineer, whatever you want to call it, Easton John, helping run the operations today, who
Doing
brought
it all
us
by
this
himself.
news. Nick Bosa, defensive end for the 49ers, believed to have torn his ACL. So the Niners have had to deal with injuries, big-time injuries, these past couple years. Obviously, they haven't had Brock Purdy as well. This is why when you get to the Super Bowl, you got to win because seasons like this happen. They had 2 chances to knock off the Chiefs.
Look at the Bengals, right?
In the Super Bowls. Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately for Nick Bosa, who is, I believe my wife would say he's the better looking of the Bosa brothers.
Oh, he's a hunk.
Yeah,
hey, I'm with you.
that.
I agree with your wife.
No disrespect to Joey Bosa by any stretch, but yeah, out with a torn ACL, it appears. So the Fighting Mac Joneses.
Yeah.
Which I got to bring this up. They did not cover the number, and I told you I was going to bring this up today. This is why in all of our NFL game pick segments, do it with me.
You take
You
the point.
take the point.
You take the point.
Arizona yesterday, 1.5 point underdogs against the 49ers. What happens? 13-13. Dom Pooney gets flagged in the end zone for a
tough luck for the former
holding.
Jayhawk.
15-13. Arizona takes the lead. San Francisco, led by the former Patriot legend, comes back, gets a game-winning drive. They kick a field goal to win 16-15. Cardinals plus 1.5. Bettors rejoice. People who just said, "Oh, I'll just throw it at the money line. They're going to win plus 100." You lose because the Cardinals lost.
Yeah, now I understand it. I actually didn't have money on that game, but I do understand.
That's why you take the point
thing now. So
it's like I get it. It's a little bit more of a, you're forfeiting a payout of sorts, not with the amount of money that you're betting.
No,
or anybody. Yeah, if somebody's betting or
75
somebody's betting
cents.
$10, $50, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. Maybe it matters more if you're betting like $100,000, like all these professional gamblers or anything like that, and you want to make sure you get that extra however many $1,000s for that. But it's not worth the heartbreak, in my opinion. Just forfeit the extra $1 or even $100 so that if that nightmare situation happens, you got the point.
That's fair. I understand it.
Again, if it's 2.5, 3.5, at some point you got to be like, okay, I got to bet against the number here.
Yeah.
But the 1.5 is something that can haunt you.
Speaking of, I'm going to skip around a little bit. Speaking of backdoor covers.
Oh boy.
Case of the Mondays for Rams spread bettors.
Let's
that
hope.
was one of the more insane backdoor covers I've ever seen in my entire life. So to set the scene for you, right? The Philadelphia Eagles were up by 1. Opening up, by the way, the Eagles were a 3.5 point favorite. So the Rams were still covering. The Rams were lined up to kick a field goal to win the game. Eagles up by 1. So still cover. It's all good if you're a Rams spread bettor. Jordan Davis gets not his first, but his second blocked field goal of the game as time is expiring, and he runs it back for a touchdown. Eagles win by 7 points. Unbelievable backdoor. I had Rams spread in my bet slip, and I decided to take it out last second. If that would have happened to me, I would have been in tears.
So, first of all, shout out to Jordan Davis. He sings Next Thing You Know and Almost Maybe is 2 of my favorite songs. You should look them up.
Of course.
Shout out. Country star Jordan Davis. No. 26-21. First of all, going back to the line of 3.5, I looked at that and I was like, why are the Eagles not favored by more?
Yeah.
This seems like a trap. How about the Rams plus 3.5? Little trap line.
Yeah.
It was 26-21. The Rams were winning in the fourth quarter. So you had it 8.5. You're still fine. Obviously, the Eagles score. They don't get the 2 point conversion. 27-26. That's like a dream, right? Because you're not going to have overtime. But I'm telling you, man. I think you're just used to seeing the SVP bad beats segments or whatever it is. You can think of any scenario that could possibly go wrong. And when I saw it was 27-26. I literally, the thought crossed my mind, they will still cover if they block a kick and return it for a touchdown. The Eagles. That's gotta,
all right.
That's gotta cross your mind.
Yeah.
you know,
Scott Van
for
Pelt's just,
anybody,
like, rattling around
yeah,
your brain.
for
You're like,
anybody who's seen the
this is gonna end
SVP
up on the
segment or anything like that, it's like there's still a way where they do not cover this 3.5. And sure enough, could Jordan Davis had gone to the turf, went back to the studio, and recorded another album? Absolutely. But instead, he scoops it up, takes it to the house, and the Eagles win by 7. But you know what? If anybody who lost money on that, who's like a casual, just remember that there are people out there betting an ungodly amount of money.
Oh yeah.
Who just lost a lot more.
Yeah, their lives are like
than you.
ruined right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No,
and
it's fine. Like I would have lost like 75 cents, which
Right.
is okay. Like I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Also, just on that note, case of Mondays for kickers, just in general.
Oh my God.
5 blocked kicks, an
That is
NFL
crazy.
record yesterday. That's unbelievable.
Also,
by the way, 3 of
Butker
them
missed 2 more.
don't give me.
Yeah.
That's
we'll save that for later.
We'll get into it later, but 3 of those kicks would have been either go ahead or game essentially clinching kicks. 2 of them got returned for touchdowns. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And it was in a span of like 2 minutes.
Oh, it was all within like the witching
Right.
hour. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
So shout out to the special teams units,
Right.
man. But by the way,
And shout out to Red Zone and the witching hour.
Aaron Glenn, head coach of the New York Jets. So the New York Jets actually blocked a kick. I believe it was for the Buccaneers to go up by 10.
They were up by 6, so they were
up by 6.
So they were going to go up by 9.
So they were going to go up by 9. That's right. And the New York Jets blocked a kick, ran it all the way back, and Aaron Glenn, man, had one of the most insane dance moves I've ever seen in my life.
And I'm proud of him. He's celebrating his guys.
No, if you're a head coach, you can't be dancing on the sideline.
You don't like that?
No, that's like a strength coach thing to do.
That is true.
You can't be, or like even like a special teams coordinator. You can't do that. If
Would
you're the
Brian
head
Nardo
coach,
do
you gotta
it?
Keep your no, he wouldn't do that.
Okay. He was a defensive coordinator, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Okay, it's a fair question. You said coordinators can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Want to make sure we get him on the show.
Also, wanted to, gosh, a lot of gambling spread talk today. Case of Mondays for Ferris State. This is attached to this. So Ferris State, they were playing a small NAIA Rio Grande. They're in Ohio. This is the first time that Rio Grande had a team in 70 years. This was their first time. Ferris State, they won 2 of the last 3 Division II titles. So not only is it disparity in terms of 2 divisions higher in AIA to Division II, Ferris State has been historically, at least within the last 5 years, one of the best Division II, if not the best Division II team. Rio Grande, nowhere to be found. Before the game, the spread was 97. Ferris State was favored by 97 points. I have never seen this in my life. That close to triple digits, 3 points away from triple digits being, but the case of the Mondays for Ferris State.
Oh.
They did not cover.
Rio Grande bettors,
yes,
if they would have just taken the little 97.
Right. If you found some offshore website that allows you to bet on D2 NAIA schools, call the number.
Man, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close.
No, it was no. It was so the final score ended up being 76-0, which is still. But in terms of you know what I always say, Sean? Good teams win. But great teams cover.
There you go, Rio Grande.
You are a great team.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Fantastic. Well, hey, we're talking Patrick Mahomes a little bit later, of course, with the Chiefs beating the Giants 22-9. But our last case of the Mondays goes to the GOAT.
So I saw this. This is just insane. So obviously Patrick Mahomes celebrated a birthday on September 17th, I believe. He turned 30, so officially over the hill. Sean, right? You remember when you turned 30?
He's only 10 years younger than Mike Gundy. That's what's crazy to me.
That is wild. That is.
It feels like Gundy's been around forever.
Yeah, I mean. How did you celebrate your 30th birthday? Right?
I can't even remember. That was
Reagan
back
in office.
No, we brought somebody in to do oil paintings. Because we wanted to make sure that we had some sort of pictures to document the.
No, I get you.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah. You got a new mule and a carriage. That's awesome.
Yes.
Dude, good for you, man. That's great. Anyway, Patrick Mahomes, he turned 30 years old, and I just saw these fun stats. And case of Mondays for anybody who doesn't think that Patrick Mahomes isn't the GOAT.
Wait, that was a double negative.
Who
doesn't think Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT. There we go.
Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT. So this is Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, and Patrick Mahomes, all at the age of 30 years old. Patrick Mahomes is a better QB rating, better completion rating. He has more pass yards per attempt, more passing yards per game, more passing touchdowns. He has a better QB rate, like I said. He has a lot more rushing attempts, a lot more rushing yards, a lot more rushing yards per average, a lot more rushing touchdowns, and also has the same amount of championships as Tom Brady. He has more Pro Bowls than Tom Brady, more AP MVPs than Tom Brady, more Super Bowl MVPs than Tom Brady, more Offensive Player of the Year trophies than Tom Brady. I mean, it's just and by the way, these are the other three guys who people claim to be potentially the GOAT.
This has
Tom
got to
Brady,
just
Peyton
really
Manning, and Joe Montana. The only thing that Joe Montana has beaten Patrick Mahomes in more interceptions.
Yeah.
Or
right.
less interceptions.
Right, fewer
So
interceptions. He has
fewer
67.
interceptions. He has 67. Patrick Mahomes has 74 at this point. Peyton Manning has more games played and more passing yards, and that's it. I mean,
he's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT.
See, and this has got to make him just even hungrier moving forward because he probably runs into stuff like this and he thinks, okay, well, I'm going to make my next 10 years even better so that there's not much of a doubt.
Well, the only thing that Tom Brady has on him is he has the same amount of championships. Other than that, every single statistical category, Patrick Mahomes is better than Tom Brady is at the year 30.
Well, Brady was really good from the age of 30 to 40 plus, so hopefully that's the same for Mahomes. He needs a little bit of help this year. We're talking Chiefs football. They did do what they needed to do and just got out of the Meadowlands with the victory. First time ever, by the way, that the Chiefs won at the Giants.
Weird.
Yeah, very strange. Also, 22-9 was not a scoregami. I looked it up.
That's also weird.
This is, I think, the 8th time it's been 22-9 in an NFL game, and the 3rd time the Chiefs were a part of it. So that's strange. That is strange. That's our Case of the Mondays for today. After this, we are going to hear from head coach Lance Leipold. He spoke post-game, the victory over the Mountaineers on Saturday, and then we'll talk some Chiefs football, a little KU volleyball after that on Rock Chalk Sports. We'll be right back after this. Thanks for listening on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City.
Hey, this is Cole Ballard, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
It was a joyous Saturday night at the new booth. KU opened Big 12 play with a 31-point shellacking of West Virginia. They had the black Warhawk uniforms, Dan, and as you know, that's probably a top 2 favorite uniform look for me in all of sports.
I think you said it is your number 1.
I know, but then I was thinking about the Royals powder blue, the all powder blues. Those are very good.
Dude, I think I kind of maybe I like KU's powder blues more than the Blackhawk.
That is ridiculous, in my opinion. Hey,
Right,
they all look good. They all look good. For what it's worth, the game notes today they don't have the black Warhawk style as they did last week. They're back to having the blue KU helmet. Cincinnati's helmet is black in that one, so it'll be interesting. I don't know.
That makes sense.
They've worn the blue on blue.
Good use of the word shellacking.
Yeah, you like that?
It's good.
Yeah, well, that's what it was.
You ever your thesaurus open underneath the desk, by the way?
31-point thesaurus. I mean, shellacking on that. Yeah, Lance Leipold, the victorious head coach, as KU gets off to a good start in the Big 12 play. Here's Coach postgame.
Thanks, you guys. Made the punt 5 times in the first quarter. The defense kind of did its job from there. Just what you see on that side of the ball tonight.
Yeah, I thought we played really well in the first quarter, getting off the field. A very challenging offense, a pace of play, and the variety in which they operate. I thought we were extremely physical. I thought we tackled well at that part, and really was an indication of our opportunity to take control of the game.
You talked about the physicality. A lot of times at the end of camp, you'll say we're ready to hit somebody else. Does that happen after a bye week where it's been 2 weeks since you've hit guys? Because you guys were incredibly physical tonight, all over.
That's a good question. Obviously, DK and the defense staff, we challenged, because we didn't tackle as well as we should have 2 weeks ago, or we could have. And again, going back to some fundamental stuff, trying to work at it, there still wasn't a live tackling period, but it was back to fundamentals and doing different things and working at it. And you kind of go through the open week. You kind of worry sometimes you're stale. But again, we've been able to play decently after these breaks. And I thought really Thursday leaving the practice field, our group was excited to play. And they went through their walkthrough as probably as intensive they've been, and I kind of had a feeling that they were ready to go today, and I thought they did a nice job.
What'd you think of the tempo too? How you guys handled what they do?
I thought we did well. Again, you're still trying to get things communicated and stuff, but all in all, I would say, and with just the view of and what I'm listening to during the game, I thought it was good. Still get better at it, but I was pleased.
Josh? I just wanted to get your take on special teams overall play.
Yeah, Brandon McAnderson just asked me that as well. I thought, you kind of look at it and start talking about, I didn't know all the Finn's, but I'll try and take a quick here look, 46-yard average of punting for inside the 20. That one really kind of gets forgotten sometimes in this, but I thought we had a really good day special teams wise. Thought our coverage units were good. Again, Emmanuel's kick return was definitely a huge turning point in the game. Put that with the field goal right before the half. I think it really kind of made a statement there for us. So really pleased on where we're at in special teams.
And then LeSean kind of had his big game. So
yeah, Daniel was slow, didn't practice much, really came along, tried his hardest to go out, practiced, some on Wednesday and Thursday, wanted to give it a go and tried and wasn't able to, had to shut him down. LeSean knew that this might be a game that he would have to step up more. And I really thought he did. And, he runs physical, he does and does such a good job. He's a good one-cut guy as well, but that was impressive. I told him I didn't know you're that fast. I'll run everybody on that one, but it was a heck of a run. He got some good downfield blocking, and again, a big-time game for him.
Coach, they came in 4th in the country in sacks. You did not allow a sack today. Talk about how well your offensive line played.
Yeah, I was pleased with again the protection of our line. Jalon did a great job escaping some pressures as well. That was an impressive defense as we watched on film, especially up front, very athletic. And again, there are multiple looks and the aggressiveness in which that front for them plays was definitely going to be a challenge, but really proud of the way our group has come together. They've done a good job protecting Jalon and again, probably a big part of this game, again, is when you can stay out of minus yardage plays.
Lance, you talked about how much you like this group. How much does this final score illustrate what you think this group is capable of?
Yeah, because we still left some things out there. The 4th down. There's some other things that not as clean as we completely like. But I do like the makeup of this football team. I like how they go about it daily. Though we're never perfect. I like the attitude of which they've been extremely coachable. They own up to where we got to get better. And hopefully today is one that we continue for them to have the hunger to keep going, be coached, be pushed, and again, get ready for another challenging game next week.
Coach, since West Virginia joined the Big 12, they were 10-2 against the Jayhawks going into this game. On Monday, you talked about what it would mean to beat West Virginia in the conference opener. What does it mean now that you've got the win and you won the way you did?
Well, it's important to get off the conference play, and I don't know about one particular opponent. I think when you asked on Monday, I think we talked about how good the matchups were. This was probably the most lopsided of all those, and for us to be able to do that means a lot. We know that they were coming in riding high after their big win and was going to play with a lot of confidence. So, margin of victory is good in many regards, but again, it only counts for one win, but hopefully it's one that this group takes a lot of pride in, because I think I also said on Monday as well, wins are hard to come by, period, and this conference is so balanced across the board that we need to embrace them as they go, clean it up from there, and get ready to go again.
We've talked a lot about Trey recently, but today you mentioned the captain and he gets a sack and a pick. Just what went that decision? What did you see from him today?
Well, I think you want me to say because he played at West Virginia that was into it. That's really what you want me to say right now. If you want me to, you should have just asked it that way.
I already knew that.
Well, then write it. But no, did it have a factor? Yes. But Trey has been playing good football. And Trey has become more confident and more vocal and has become a better leader. within our defense and our program, and he's well respected. So that was also part of the equation, and maybe being a former Mountaineer had something to do with it as well.
Lance, who did you see on like the targeting play against Jalon early in the half?
Well, you know, I went there because I thought the whole thing was going to get out of hand, and that's where what I saw was a targeting call, and then I didn't see what it, you know, of course our guys are going to try to defend somebody, and I didn't see the exact if Kobe Baines was the first one to push somebody, then I saw somebody else in a white jersey push somebody, and then Kelvin Clements was, and that's where I went to try to get it before we just have a disaster. And that's tough for officials and all that. And again, you know, people are playing hard when a quarterback goes to slide. Sometimes that's tough on a lot of people. I do understand that, but it definitely was. I think everybody in the place could see it. But yeah, and then you know, Devin Dye had one, and again, I thought it, and in fact, the official said to me as they're reviewing it, he thought his face was up on it, and it's not a defenseless, you know, he's not defenseless as the runner there, but I think the replay showed that his head was down and hit with the crown of the helmet, which is unfortunate because it was a nice hit. So, but again, all those things are for the safety of the game to keep guys healthy, and that's what's most important. And anything, again, you know, we want to defend our teammates and do those things, but we, again, trying to make sure there's composure across the board, and that's also important. And I was glad it got settled as quick as it did.
Looking at the middle eight, what did you like most about what you guys did kind of end of the first half, start of the second?
Well, we get to stop, right? You got to help me if everything happens at that. We get in the middle eight. Is that the fourth down? Do we get a fourth down stop?
Fourth down.
We got a fourth down stop, and then we go down. And of course, I thought again we were going to be trying to aggressive a little bit with the time frame that we had, and then Jalon makes a couple big runs. You know, we're going to try to take one shot in the end zone, try to score a touchdown, and then we decided, worst case, we're going to take the three, the momentum with the ball coming out the second half, and and then the kick return. Emmanuel had, he was supposed to fair catch the first one, okay, and he took it out anyway, and he took it like to midfield. So I knew he was pretty, he was pretty confident on what was happening, and of course you could really chance, the cool thing is you get everybody a chance to see how fast the guy really is, and it was an impressive run and a big time boost for us in that middle eight.
And just prior to Jalon running the ball there, it seemed like there were some struggles with the run game.
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned there with West Virginia, but what do you think went into everything there?
Yeah, again, when you get so many multiple looks at what they're doing and there's things, I thought even when they were, that talks about pressure and Jalon's kind of escaping things, I thought we had some people open and he kind of was overthrowing and trying to make some things happen. But yeah, we were struggling to run the ball there. But then, we even talked at halftime, we have to have Jalon run a little bit more because that was the one thing we could still look into. The other thing we talked about was trying to go at them a little bit more downhill and try to hit some things. And I thought LeSean did it. I thought Harry and Johnny did a nice job when they came in for their opportunities as well to give us some quality runs.
Time for more, Jordan?
Lance, this was your first week having to deal with player availability reports with the Big 12. How do you feel that process unfolded for you?
Trent Carter's the main, our athletic trainer, does a great job here. I think he's one of the best in the business and extremely professional. We went through it. He kind of tells me where it's at, what we're doing, and I think it went okay. I should ask you guys, you guys probably see it after that, you think it was okay and beneficial? I don't, it has to be at a certain time. He's kind of telling me the league will post it at 9 p.m. each night or whatever that is. We talk mid-afternoon, late afternoon, where it's at, and then he hits me up again about if there's any other changes that have come across. If not, we're going to go with what we said before. So I think it's fine. I think you guys are here all the time. No, to me, as long as it's even for everyone and people are doing it the way it's intended, it's good for football.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
That's Lance Leipold post-game, the victory over West Virginia, 41-10. Yeah, we're going to be reliving that all week.
Oh, yeah.
That's what happens when it's not quite basketball season, and especially when we win, we will be referencing that game a lot. So appreciate all you out there in Jayhawk Nation who are as dorky as we are on that front. But all of our
Sean
guests,
more so dorky
obviously,
than me.
yeah. But all of our guests will touch on that, of course, and then we'll preview Cincinnati coming up Saturday at 11 at the booth. After this, we're talking Chiefs football. Thanks for listening to ESPN Kansas City and watching KansasNation.com.
This is Daniel Highshaw, and you're watching KansasNation.com.
John Kellerman and Dan Courtwright back live in the new Kansas Nation studios on Mass Street. When you're walking down Mass, take a peek in. We've got the big, sexy leg inflatable Jayhawk that you won't miss us. I promise you that.
Absolutely
but,
not.
We're excited to
Plus,
be
if
here.
I'm hanging out there, you'll see a couple more sexy legs too, if you catch my drift.
No, but you might actually see Dan Courtwright taking a few shots on our
That's
basketball hoop here. But anyway, welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com. We're talking Chiefs football as they pick up their first win. But first, KU volleyball. Want to update you on that. They're 9-5. They finish the Omaha tournament 2-1 and losing to number 18 Creighton yesterday. Unfortunately, KU does take their 5th loss. It's another loss in the top 25, but a solid performance. They had won 5 consecutive matches before falling to Creighton. Grace Nelson and Reese Patak both named to the Creighton Classic All-Tournament team, and now Big 12 play begins. It should be fun, Dan. It's going to be an Arizona swing, but a home Arizona swing this weekend. You get ASU Friday at 7. That game's going to be on ESPNU, and then Sunday, the Wildcats come calling noon. That game's going to be on ESPN. So 9-5. I'm sure they would have liked a couple more wins, a couple more marquee wins against tough competition in the non-com, but really, really competitive matches. And now they're definitely battle-tested as they bring on Big 12.
Yeah, and like you said, they're starting off with the Zoe Burgess revenge game. It's about dang time that they're at home, right? It's just, you
Friday,
feel good
finally.
about that. They've been on the road for so long in this preseason, and finally they get to play at Horsch. And obviously that place has probably the best, if not a top 3 best home environments in all of college volleyball. So it's always great to be back at home.
Yeah, and also really want to get this out there. Came out earlier today. The Kansas women's basketball conference slate was announced today. A couple noteworthy games. KU on New Year's Day on the women's side hosting West Virginia. Why not start Big 12 play with West Virginia? It seems like that always happens. KU and K-State are going to do battle on Sunday, January 25th in Lawrence, and then KU will visit Bramlage on February 21st. Those are the 2 dates for the Dillon's Sunflower Showdown. And senior night's going to be KU Texas Tech on February 25th. The conference season closing matchup will be in Stillwater, KU Oklahoma State on February 28th. And then, of course, the Phillips 66 Big 12 Women's Basketball Tournament at the T-Mobile Center will start March 4th and go through March 8th or 9th. So those are some highlights from the Kansas Women's Basketball Conference slate. The first game is going to be December 21st, a tough one in Ames at Iowa State. We'll have more coverage on that, of course, as the week rolls on for Rock Chalk Sports. Dan, Chiefs, they got the win, right? We talked last week. That's what you got to do. You got to beat the Giants. You can't walk out of there at 0-3. They pick up the win. Was it pretty? No, not at all. But the 22-9 victory got the offense going a little bit in the second half. Tyquan Thornton, a couple nice catches. One counted, one didn't. But again, the defense did what they did, and now you got the Ravens next week. Nice to get on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And a win is a win, right? Doesn't matter how you get it. It wasn't pretty. It, in fact, was probably the opposite of pretty. It was a really bad game. Isaiah Pacheco, I mean, there are some question marks to be had about him in terms of, do you even continue along with him being sort of your bell cow? Do you go straight to Kareem Hunt and have Brashad Smith right behind him kind of being that other guy? Because Isaiah Pacheco, as of right now, is not looking good. I mean, there was a lot of times where you thought, man, why is he even out there? And I thought the play calling was not great as well. Matt Nagy, shout out to his kid, obviously plays here at KU, but I thought some of the play calling was a little suspicious just because of the fact that they kept on going to bubble screens and they were barely throwing it past the line of scrimmage. I mean, it was like the Miami Dolphins a couple weeks ago where they just weren't throwing those deep shots. Now, granted, at the end, towards the end of the game, right, Tyquan Thornton had a couple of deep shots, but just the play calling in general was a little bit tricky. And then I'll say this, I alluded to it earlier. I am 100% out on Harrison Butker. His steep downfall has been incredibly steep.
Wow.
I'm out on him.
He had a
I think
58-yarder last week.
I think the Chiefs need to, yeah, but I think Chiefs need to look forward. I mean, 2 years ago he was a top 5, maybe even top 3 kicker in the NFL. Last year dealt with some injury. I think he was like ranked 23rd best kicker in the NFL, and then this year it has been really bad. I mean, he pushed one, he missed an extra point, missed a couple kicks already this year. I'm out on him.
I don't think I'm giving up on either of those guys. You look, Pacheco 10 for 45, but Hunt was only 10 for 34. He doesn't exactly have a lot of burst. They like him at the goal line. I know Pacheco hopefully can get some sort of momentum, but it seems like they don't really know what the answer is there either. And then Butker, he had a 54-yard field goal. I get it. He's missed 4 kicks this year. That's not good enough. Mahomes is also not fantastic. Kelsey's still looking a step slow. I just think we can't really fully grade this team, Dan, until we get those 2 wide receivers back. Hopefully Worthy back soon enough. And then we got to compliment the defense. 2 picks for Russell Wilson. He was just an absolute mess. They did have 1 touchdown scoring drive aided by penalties. Penalties, something the Chiefs need to clean up for sure, but defense proving that they are a top 5 unit in the league.
The main thing that I pulled out of this is, oh my God, how bad is the Dallas Cowboys defense?
Right?
Because how did that team put up 450 yards, or how did Russell Wilson put up 450 yards through the air against the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, just absolutely insane. Tyquan Thornton had a fantastic game. He has just been incredible and such a big step up for him, with Xavier Worthy being out and Rashee Rice still being suspended. This is his opportunity, and he certainly took it. I have a question. We can talk a little bit more about this maybe tomorrow, but would you be against potentially the Chiefs trying to go for someone like Alvin Kamara, who, I mean, the Saints are probably going to try to start selling? It's a win-win because Alvin Kamara leaves, then Devin Neal becomes their number 1.
Right.
And then also we have Alvin Kamara.
Well, they got to get rid of Kendre Miller, the TCU great too.
True.
He's backing up. But hey, you know what? I'll listen. I'm not out on Pacheco. He's my guy. Your guy, Cam Scatterbo, he's the best thing the Giants have going for him.
Yeah, he looked great
right now. I'll tell you that much.
No,
but Chiefs
I'm
are
out on Pacheco and Butker. I'm out.
Chiefs are 1-2. They get the Ravens at home next week. For Easton John and Elijah Smith running the operations today, and Dan Courtwright, I'm Sean Kellerman saying we'll catch you tomorrow on Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com, and ESPN Kansas City.